sharp as ever.
Hello everyone, Shadefyre here, and today I'm taking a first impressions look at Monster Hunter Rise, a game that I have been looking forward to for its PC port, even though, it's been out for quite a while on the Switch, but I was looking forward to getting to play this with the upgraded frame rates and everything like that, and plus I don't have a Switch. So I'm not really a long-time Monster Hunter fan. I started with World, like I assume a lot of people, since it was one of the best-selling Monster Hunter games that kind of made it more mainstream than it was before, because for a long time, Monster Hunter was considered pretty niche, especially when it became kind of a handheld exclusive series for a time, even though it started on the PS2. But I played World. I did not play Iceborne, even though I own it, but I didn't really seriously play World until last year, when I basically started over, because I think I stopped somewhere in the middle of high rank before, and I started over, got all the way up to grinding the Elder Dragons, but I didn't want to do the jump from that to Iceborne without actually doing some of the more tedious things that I really should have just skipped so I could play Iceborne. But anyway, now I'm playing Rise, and I'm not too far into it. I've done like the first 3 large monsters, which I think are all new to this game. I could be wrong though. As you can see, they went with a very Japanese theme for this game, because I guess most of the Monster Hunter games probably have some kind of national theming like this, similar to Pokemon, though I wouldn't say that World really had one, because it was more of like the almost kind of barbarian aesthetic going on, with them living in ramshackle habitations made out of broken ships. But yeah, for this, I think we're just going to go out. We're going to hunt a monster or 2. I think we'll do one of the... We'll do this Aknosom, which is like the progress quest, second, but first we'll do one of the smaller, less important monsters that I haven't fought yet, the Lagombi, which is, as you might expect, a rabbit. I've seen one of these guys, because I've been to the area where they show up, but I haven't actually fought it yet, so I don't know exactly what it does. So we'll do one of these. It should be fairly easy, and then we'll do the Aknosom, and then I think that's probably a good enough look at
I'll be here if you need
just the basics. And then I would like to do some boss fights videos for various monsters when I first encounter them, which is, it helps to know ahead of time that you are fighting a new monster with the quest just telling you. So I will touch on multiplayer. I haven't actually played it yet, but this is the multiplayer zone. This whole game is more or less a kind of middle ground between old Monster Hunter and Monster Hunter World. So, like, this is an old Monster Hunter thing of having a multiplayer-only area with multiplayer-only quests. Whereas Monster Hunter World, basically every quest had multiplayer capability. But instead, if you want to do online stuff, you come here and you can, queue up with other people for specific hunts, or you can come here with your friends, and there's no, like, oh, you can't do co-op with your friends unless they've already seen the cutscene in this mission. Because that was a really tedious system that was fine for playing with randoms, but was kind of bad for playing with other people. I tried to get friends to play with me, and that whole thing just put them off completely after only a few hours. But yeah, you come in here if you want to do multiplayer. Otherwise, these are single-player quests out here. And that's how I think most of the old Monster Hunters work, is they kind of split those into 2 separate things. So this is like the story mode stuff in here, and then in there is just the harder hunts. I'm not 100% sure, but I think when you do multiplayer quests like that, the monster always has 4 times health, even if you don't have 4 people, but I'm not 100% sure. I think that's how the old games did it. So there's not really something you want to do alone. Okay, so let's do a Rabid Rabbit, which is in the area that I haven't seen too much yet, but it is like a frozen zone. Also, performance has been really good in this game, but I do get this random hitch, like, maybe once per quest. We'll probably see it. But, like, most of the time it runs super smooth, and then it'll just, like, hitch for a couple seconds, and that's it. So, as always, you gotta eat before you go on your mission in order to get the buffs. In this case, you're eating bunny dango, and I'm pretty sure dango is just a dessert in Japan, so it's kind of funny that in the previous games you're eating, like, these giant hawks of meat and everything, and here it's just like, here's a snack. So, you get to put 3 of these dangos on your stick, and they have different effects. I assume you unlock more of these later, because none of these are super useful. But we'll go with Polisher. So sharpening a weapon is faster. We'll go with, I guess sometimes damage is decreased, and we'll go with don't get knocked down as much. And then, of course, there's a fancy cutscene of them making it. It is nice that the cutscenes like this actually do take into account, you know, your actual dangos or whatever.
Here you go.
Even though they seem to be pre-rendered. Either that or they just only render at 30 FPS, even in this version. You can also see my two buddies there. My K9 with a Y, Kala. And Proust, my feline. Did I say K9 or feline? Anyway, they're, you know, feline and a K9 with a Y. The K9 is your mount. This game has a lot more mobility than Monster Hunter World, even though, you know, Monster Hunter World was considered the faster, more accessible Monster Hunter. This has even more mobility options, as we'll see when we get in here. And I guess we've already eaten, so no reason to hang around. But yeah, you can ride your dog, but then the other main thing, and I guess the reason it's called Rise, is because you basically have a grappling hook bug that you can use regularly to get around and launch into the sky.
Beast does whatever it wants.
You also get these, like, old samurai film-looking
Bear.
intros to each monster the first time you hunt them.
If neither, so beware. It will drench the snow with blood and leave nothing but despair.
So it's sort of a snowy rabbit bear. It actually looks a lot like one of the monsters I've already fought, the Aknosom. It's probably using similar animation rigging, because, you know, a lot of monsters in Monster Hunter do have crossover. Either they're just a straight-up recolor or redesign, or they use a very similar design with slightly different attacks. Which I think is fine. I'd rather have a little bit of variety like that, and have, like, you know, 50 monsters instead of just, here's 10 monsters, all of them are completely different. So yeah, we have 2 wire bugs, and then you can pick up a wild one, which will give you a 3rd charge for a short time before it runs out. But with those, you can do this. So you basically can grapple to nothing, just to the sky, a limited distance. But something else that's new to Monster Hunter is, you couldn't even do this in World, you can basically climb on any surface that's within the map. Like, you can't go up the edges of the map, but stuff like this, if you just grapple to it and then hold down run, you can actually run up it as long as your stamina lasts. So that's why there's so much mobility in this game, is just stuff like that combined. There are also great wire bugs, which you essentially find spots to plant those around the map, and once you plant them, they're permanent, and those will just launch you a big section across the map to make it easier to redo, you know, areas you've already done, instead of having to walk or run or zip across. There's also these guys. You just, like, get a little buff off of getting near them, and they're all over the map. There are a lot of little buffs and hunter helpers, which are like various kinds of wildlife that you can temporarily carry around and use for various things. But then they disappear at the end of the mission, because I guess you can't carry all these living critters back with you. And as usual with Monster Hunter, you're going to be just kind of picking up everything. So that Escurgo, I guess, is one of those hunter helpers. There's also, like, these butterflies around, which will give you buffs if you walk up to them, and that's also temporary. I think the little birds that you get buffs from are actually permanent for that mission. Alright, so here's our Lagombi. Oh, and it's about to fuck off. I also think that because of all these mobility abilities, it's actually very easy to catch up to a monster when they're fleeing. I didn't talk about my weapon either. I'm using the switch axe. It was one of the last weapons I started using in Monster Hunter World, and I enjoyed it a fair bit, so I thought I'd start off with that. I also really like the gun lance, which was also one of the later things I was using. But I think the weapon I used the most was the longsword and the bow. You can also recover from knockdowns with the wire bugs, or do special attacks with them. or just launch yourself like that. You have a lot of options. But yeah, the reason it's called a switch axe is because, similar to weapons in Bloodborne, it transforms mid-attack. It switches into a sword form like this. But the sword form, you're much less mobile. There's no new weapon type to this game, you know. I think World added something new? Or maybe Insect Glaive was the last new weapon, which I think was from Monster Hunter 4. But yeah, you have the axe form, which is longer range and more mobile. And then you have the sword form, which is more damage but shorter range. And you can only use it for as long as that kind of axe-looking meter on the top left lasts. And then you have to switch back and charge it up again. And this is the main big attack of the sword. You stick it in and do a big explosion with elemental effects, which actually charges up the sword into like a boosted mode. When it has sparks coming off like that, it is considered amped, and you can actually do a better version of that attack I just did when it's amped. Alright, broke a piece off. You get better drops the more pieces of a monster you can break before the end of the fight. Alright, let's see if we can get a grab while he's amped. Nope, he jumped right over it. So that just recharges my axe, that secondary move. It doesn't actually do damage, but it also does launch you forward. So I'm not great with this, but at least I think I've figured out most of the moves. I watched the tutorial, of course. I feel like most of the weapons in Monster Hunter are not actually that difficult to figure out, but they sound harder if you like listen to somebody just talking about some of the moves. It's like, wow, that sounds complicated. And then you actually look at like a move list and it's pretty basic. There's not too many. That's the reason I ended up using like 6 different weapons in Monster Hunter World. It's just I would start to get bored of you doing the same thing, and I'd start with a new weapon, which is how I got to like Gun Lance or the Switch Axe. Alright, my sharpness, which is the other meter under the stamina, well, that's now orange, is going down, so now my weapon is going to start bouncing off of his hide, or at least his more durable spots. So I got to sharpen, which means finding a spot where he's not going to attack me.
Excellent opportunity.
You can also do this while you're on the back of your dog. And I think you actually could mount up in the middle of a fight if you wanted to. Yeah, so that attack right there is one of the bear's other attacks, the Aknosom. But it doesn't have a slide like this. Alright, now we're amped, so we can actually stick onto a part of it while we charge up. You still take damage while you're doing this, but you can't get knocked off. This doesn't really have mounting in the same way that World did. It has actually a completely different system that we get to see if we can find another monster while we're hunting one. Because now you can actually ride a monster to fight other monsters with that monster for a limited time.
Not much longer now.
You can also cancel that attack if... Oh, okay, he's trying to get away. And so you can cancel that attack if you're out of range. So yeah, as long as we can catch up to him and get a hit on, he will turn around and start fighting us again. Not like that. Wow. Just one hit to the back. So yeah, so far I've noticed that these monsters go down real quick, even when I'm using early gear. And I have heard people say that this might actually be the fastest and easiest Monster Hunter. Which, you know, I don't think that's a bad thing. As as long as there's enough content. And it's nice that this is coming out now, and then there's already going to be a, substantial post-game expansion coming out in the summer. Sunbreak, I think it's called? Sunstreak, something like that. But yeah, I've been enjoying this actually quite a bit in the last few days. And then you just have the countdown time where you can harvest materials or whatever while you wait for it. I like these little fish that you can get buffs off of by running up to them.
Another successful hunt.
I think she turned out as a decently pretty pupper, because you do have to make your dog and your cat at the start. And as always with... Oh, hey, look, there's my little owl bud. The owl is also the reason that you can see monsters on the map at all times, because you can see when we start the mission, you launch your owl up. It's basically like your drone in the sky.
Come to me.
And in town here, it seems to have replaced the...
You're such a beauty.
The little pig, what are they called? Pogies?
Quite adorable.
Porgies? Something like that? That you would, come back and pet and feed when you return to town.
Sharp as ever.
And apparently, if you keep hitting him like this, that's when they'll start showing up to greet you when you return to town. Man, owls are cool. I wish I had a chunky little owl that liked to sit on my arm. Though you might want to wear some leather on your arm if you're going to do that. Alright. So I guess now we'll do the actual main quest, which will open up the next tier of quests for the village. And you can see at the top right that your progression is separate between the village and the hub. Also, let's see what kind of armor that Lagombi gives you. It's a little silly. I like the armor I have right now because it looks like it looks a lot like the Legiana armor in Monster Hunter World, and that was pretty cool. I think Legiana was one of my favorite new monsters in Monster Hunter World, along with Tobi Kadachi.
My hammer's ready.
Alright, so I don't think we can make a new weapon out of that. Not all weapons will have a weapon based on every monster. But it looks like there is a Lagombi switch axe. But sometimes you won't be able to make a new weapon when you fight a monster. You'll only be able to make new armor, because only certain classes will have a weapon for that specific monster type. So this is an element file. I'm guessing it does ice damage. And it looks okay. It's not better than my current one, though, damage-wise. And early in the game, element stuff doesn't matter too much. That's more of a high rank thing where that starts to really stand out. Because, I mean, you saw, we kind of demolished that guy without even any special weapon. Alright, let's fight the Aknosom, which is kind of a crane-based monster. I mean, again, this is very Japanese-based, so all of the new monster designs are based off of Japanese imagery or, yokai.
Don't forget to eat.
Also, layered armor was something you only unlocked really late into the into Monster Hunter World, and then they didn't really have a lot of options until Iceborne came out. But in this, layered armor you can get right from the start, and that's just cosmetic armor that you can put over yours. So I have a cosmetic helmet right now that's replacing the not great looking helmet for this set. Let's see, feet. Yeah, I don't know. None of these are really that important. Deflector, I guess. And healing. I don't know how much damage this thing does or how it fights. I'm gonna skip that this time. So the reason you want to do that every time is because it also gives you a bit of extra health and stamina, even if you don't get any particularly good buffs out of it.
A bamboo forest at night. The sound of dancing is heard. Resembling a parasol, but in truth a monstrous bird. Be wary of its figure and its vibrant hue. For once its collar opens, a rain of blood will ensue.
Kind of neat looking. It's a weird, like, blend of crane and lizard or dragon. Okay, so at the top, you can see that at the end of my health and stamina bars, I also have like a grayed out section, and that's because you can actually use items to increase that even further. So if I pop one of these well-done steaks, it will increase the next segment. And I don't think I have anything that can increase it more than that right now. Maybe can I eat a second one to increase it all the way? No. I think only certain things can go above the partially colored in section. Alright, now I'm hoping this time we'll be able to get the other monster, because there's pretty much always two monsters on the map, it seems. So you can see on the left side of the map, there is something I've already fought, and the question mark will be our target. So if we can get one over to the other, we can turn them on each other for a bit. Similar to the clashes in Monster Hunter World, but you have much more of a direct effect on it, and it's less annoying. So there's no, like, a basil goose coming in and bombing the shit out of both of you, which was a constant thing in the high-rank Monster Hunter World. Alright, so here's the other bear, similar to the one we just fought. The Aknosom.
I shall bring it down.
Also, there's no photo mode, but there is a camera, and you can just, like, kind of pop this sucker up. Now, it doesn't stop monsters from attacking you, so you don't have a lot of time to take a photo before it tries to kill you. But if I can get him to follow me... I know some of the, like, helpful wildlife can be used to lure monsters as well to other monsters. There's one called a stink mink, which apparently really annoys monsters, and they'll just chase you down. He might show up later. They do tend to wander around. Wire bug. I don't think you can get more than 3, but...
Useful.
Oh, there's a stink mink. These guys are cute. Like, minks are already cool, but I wouldn't usually describe most minks as cute. That's more of their relatives that are cute than the actual minks. I mean, they're actually not that different from weasels, and weasels are pretty cute. There's just busy work wildlife wandering around. The first big monster you fight is a big version of these guys. They're kind of neat. They have like a raptor claw on their tail.
I'll help myself.
Oh,
Thank you.
I just noticed that our monsters are now in the same spot. So we want to get down there before they split up. I just want to get a look at the mink. Oops. You can like crouch down. But apparently these guys are like really stinky or something, and monsters don't like them. So you can use it to enrage a monster and then get it to follow you.
Pardon my insolence.
Oh, this is one of those ants that were walking
I shall
by.
put this to good use.
Okay, so our targets are on the other side of this cliff. I don't think we have a shortcut right now we can use to get over it. I could climb it, but then I'd have to go all the way over. It's okay. I think we can make it there before those two split up. The dog is pretty quick by itself. Alright, so there's our target. There's the bear. They will fight over territory like that, but you can actually mount it if you hit it with your wire attacks, or if it gets hit by the other monster. And then basically you just get to ride it for a little bit and slap the shit out of the monster with it. And then once that bar fills up all the way, you kind of like charge up a special attack. However, if you launch the monster at the other monster, you can actually then ride the other one instead.
Do for now.
And I think you can kind of do this back and forth repeatedly.
Observe how it's done.
And you can also dodge, because I think getting hit will reduce the time you can ride it. So I'm going to launch him. And that knocked a shit ton of materials off, too. I think these are actually extra, like they don't count against your brakes and stuff. I think the Aknosom has wandered off, but because we use the launch, this guy is kind of bound for a moment. Alright, I think its crest is already broken. Breaking monster parts can also reduce the effectiveness of attacks that use those parts, or in some cases disable the attacks entirely. Oh yeah, he hits pretty hard. Oh. Wasn't really looking, and I didn't even notice those fireballs until they were coming down. So he does have fire attacks. Alright, well, there he goes. And he can fly, so that does make it harder to chase him down. Unless you have, like, a flash bomb. There's also no, like, wrist crossbow like Monster Hunter World had, so you can't freely launch stuff like that into the sky to knock him out. I think so far, one of the things I'm not doing enough with the switch axe is using the sword. Because I'm like, oh, it's on a limited meter, so I shouldn't switch to it. But like, anytime it's charged up, you should try to get some damage in with it. I could have jumped out of the way with that. I'm also not used to using the wire bugs to dodge. Because, you know, I'm used to rolling out of the way of everything from Monster Hunter World. This does so much damage, though, like 250 damage from that one attack. Though I didn't actually get to see how much the explosion did. That attack is also really good for getting back into range of the monster. Okay, the tail is pretty durable, it looks like. Alright. He's almost down. I don't have the traps to capture it, so we're just gonna have to do a kill. And visually, I think this game looks pretty good. You know, it doesn't have the exact graphic fidelity of Monster Hunter World, especially because that had like a 4K texture pack or whatever you could optionally download, but I still think that for a Switch port, this is pretty good looking and very fluid. And I'm sure eventually they will put out a more HD texture pack. Yeah, let me just keep getting slapped as I'm talking. They also don't seem to have the buff capes in this, the mantles that Monster Hunter World had. But I will say that overall, this definitely doesn't feel any, like, more stiff to control than World did. Because, you know, the old Monster Hunter games, something that put a lot of people off was that they're very deliberate, and they were very much like, when you started an attack, you were committed to that attack, and you couldn't roll out of it. But this seems to have kept a lot of the quality of life improvements on controls and stuff from World. And apparently there are also moves that will, like, replace current moves that you can unlock later on. Oh no, don't fly away. You don't even have working wings anymore, come on. Damn it. Oh, so close. Alright, well, let's see where it ends up now. At least it even tells you on the map where it's going. Just a reminder that in old Monster Hunter, not only did you not see the monster on the map most of the time, but you had no idea where it was going to go until you'd actually, like, done that monster enough times to learn what parts of the map it hung out on. Because you had to actually... Basically, you'd go into a mission with no idea where the monster is, and you'd have to throw a paintball at it and actually hit it with that to temporarily have it show up on the map. And of course, back before World, all of the maps were divided up into multiple segments with loading zones between them. Well, let's see if we can flash him. Oh, I guess he's not that stunned. Also, the nice thing is the sword does not bounce off of armor, no matter how dull your blade is.
This is going to hurt!
And there he goes. Alright, that wasn't too bad. Definitely a little tougher than the Lagombi, but I think this is a 3-star monster instead of a 2-star.
Wonderful work, my friend.
Also, since this is using the RE engine once again, it should be fairly moddable, so I'm curious to see what kind of mods people put out for this. There were some interesting ones for World, including, like, straight up new monsters. I think even there was a Xenomorph Queen mod. Like, one of the monsters you could hunt was replaced with a Xenomorph Queen.
I'll help myself, thank you.
But yeah, Capcom is also, typical of most Japanese companies, not super nice about fan-made content. They generally want to snuff it out. Like, Capcom has a creators program that they opened up recently, but it seems like any of the channels that, you know, were dedicated to doing, like, Resident Evil or whatever, that also covered fan mods and hacked content and leaks and whatnot, were completely left out of the creators program. So that's pretty lame. But they haven't also got, like, litigious about most of the fan content, which makes them only slightly better than most other Japanese companies like Nintendo. Alright, so this is our village elder. He's not that important. the story is really not usually that much of a focus in Monster Hunter. It's mostly just a reason for you to hunt monsters.
Oh.
Something I was going to mention is that there is a like tower defense type mission that this game added, but apparently it doesn't actually show up that much, and most of them are optional, except like the first one. Oh, I got all these side quests. But yeah, that's
Yep.
Alright. He's gonna give me a parasol for my dog. That's pretty much Monster Hunter Rise. It's fun, feels good to play, and I don't think it's really a step backward from World, because World definitely had some things that weren't great, and I feel like this has sort of corrected some of those without really introducing too many problems of its own. But part of that, I guess I'll have to wait until high rank to really know where some of the tedious stuff comes in. What the fuck is this? Oh, this is made out of those ants. It's like an insect shell tuxedo armor. That's really weird. And then the one we just unlocked. Oh, that's actually pretty nice. That's like a, medieval knight armor, but made out of hard feathers. I'll probably end up using that.
Makes waste.
Looks a little bit like the Rathian armor, or Rathalos armor. That'll probably be my next one, and I think it's a little bit better. Yeah, 16 defense instead of 10.
See you
You can also make gear for your dog and your cat. So, that's the feline equivalent. And what's the dog equivalent? Really covers up the dog, though, which I guess is good if you want armor. Okay, that one's kind of goofy. I don't really like the fluffy armor. I don't know, he just kind of looks like an old cop dog. But yeah, that's Monster Hunter Rise. I'm having a good time with it. We'll have to see if that continues to be the case, but I would like to do some monster-focused videos later on when I get a bit further into the tougher stuff. I definitely like to do one on the Mitsuzune, which is a returning monster, but it's a cool, like, sea dragon type thing. And I've never played any of the games that it was in, so it'd be cool to check that out. But for now, I'll have to say farewell, and I'll see you back in Kamura in the future. Of that, I can probably guarantee. Take care, everyone.